Well, it's a year on since the violence exploded in Sudan, and Unicef says over 90% of Sudanese children are being deprived of formal education. The organization further says the region is experiencing the world's largest child displacement crisis. Well, let's now get a sense of the state of education in Sudan with Eiad Husham, who is a journalist and joins us now live via video link. Eiad, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start here quickly. I understand that you are in Dubai, and we've just been reporting on the floods in Dubai. I mean, what's the situation looking like from your vantage point?
There's a lot of water everywhere, but mostly people are safe. This is the most important thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Sudan. I mean, and the work that you've done. 90% of Sudanese children of school age are deprived of a formal education. I mean, are those numbers making sense for you, for what you see on the ground when you cover stories coming out of Sudan?
Honestly, I believe the numbers are way higher than that, because if we're saying schools denied access for students, we're talking about more than 90%. The only place that there is school access, it's not under the control of the two warring parties. It's in Nuba Mountains. And a few weeks ago, I reported that a school in El Hadra village in Nuba Mountains was bombed by the Air Force. So the only place in Sudan there is schools is in the Nuba Mountains. Other schools in other states where they are under control of the warring parties are being used as camps for the refugees. We're talking about 8.5 million are internally displaced. So the numbers are way higher than 90%.
Yeah, schools used to house the displaced. I mean, that's quite shocking.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to imagine then what the numbers look like where we're talking about displaced children, Eiad.
Yeah, we're talking about the International Organization of Immigration said on daily basis there's 20,000 Sudanese are forced to flee their houses. Half of that number are kids. So we're talking about 10,000 kids per day.
Yeah.
So the numbers are really high and heartbreaking.
It's actually really hard to imagine that, right? It's very, very difficult to imagine it, and I can only imagine what it looks like then seeing it on a daily basis on the ground. Can we talk a little bit about malnutrition then? You know, when we have 20,000 people displaced in a day, every single day, you worry then that they might very well be facing life-threatening severe malnutrition.
Yes, there's more than 19 million Sudanese in need for urgent humanitarian aid. We're talking about 90% of the Sudanese people can't afford more than one meal per day. We're talking about every 2 hours in Zamzam camp, a refugee in Darfur, a kid died. We're talking about one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. And both warring parties are committing war crimes by denying humanitarian access in their controlled areas. So the international community must put more pressure on those two generals to allow humanitarian aid urgently to Sudan.
And that was going to be my next question. Are we getting humanitarian aid into Sudan? What is that looking like? And talk to me about some of the hindrances, if you will.
Can you repeat the question?
Some of the hindrances or challenges in getting aid to the most vulnerable?
Yeah, because both of the warring parties, both of the generals, are using starvation as a weapon. They're using the humanitarian aid for political calculations. And they're not allowing access or guarantee humanitarian aid workers safety in their controlled areas. So without both of them accepting humanitarian aid to be entered in their areas, I don't see any humanitarian aid would be provided to those who need it.
I'm reading here that Sudan has also become the world's largest, listen to this, the world's largest displacement crisis, with over 4 million children forced from their homes. That's since April 2023, including nearly 1 million children crossing into neighboring countries. They're crossing into countries like Chad, Egypt, and South Sudan. Many refugees are returnees as well. you know, it's a heartbreaking situation. And I think when you think about your own kids making their way to school, imagine the lives of these children, that their lives absolutely having been you know, flipped on their head, and then they're not able to access education and basic needs like food also not being fulfilled. Eiad, I wonder if, as you watch the geopolitical tensions that happen globally, and certainly the attention that South Africa has given to some of the big geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine, and even between Israel and Palestine, if you worry that the Sudanese crisis is a forgotten one.
Yeah, sure, I'm worried, but I understand why. If we put the conflict, the ongoing conflict in Sudan under the spotlight, we will understand it's not just a war between two generals. Actually, there is international and regional actors are involved directly in this conflict. So most of the Western leaders, most of African leaders are turning their head away from Sudan for political calculations. There is international and regional actors involved directly in this conflict, and without putting an end to this, I don't see any end to this war or any media coverage on the situation in Sudan.
Well, we're going to obviously have the story because we want to turn that around, Eiad. What is it that you want to see from regional bodies, or has all faith been lost in regional bodies such as even the African Union?
Yeah, this is not my own feeling. This is the Sudanese, where they feel that no one cares, no one is seeing their struggle, no one is there to help. So I believe the international community, the regional community, should put more pressure on these countries to stop supporting the two generals, so we can have a ceasefire, so we can enter humanitarian aid to Sudan, bring those people back to their houses. So without us doing, without the regional, like the African Union doing much, I don't see any solution for this conflict.
And just to give our viewers a little bit of context, of course, the war in Sudan started up last year, and it's a civil war between two rival factions of the military government of Sudan, the Sudanese Armed Forces under Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces under the Janjaweed leader, Hemedi. We're going to keep following this story, and thank you so much for speaking to us. I think before I let you go, are you concerned that the situation could worsen, and just how bad do your worst fears really look like?
There's two scenarios. People call it a civil war. I believe we are not already there yet, but it could be happening soon. And the other worst scenario is if one of the warring parties manage to control Sudan. We are talking about, I believe it's going to be worse era than al-Bashir regime.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Very, very concerning, and thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. We will be following up on that story. That's something that we'll be keeping a close eye on, particularly here on the AM Report. Eiad Husham is a journalist speaking to us about the horrific situation that is being seen in war-torn Sudan, where I mean, if there's ever been a humanitarian crisis, we're hearing from Unicef that 90% of Sudanese school-age children are deprived of formal education. Eiad essentially said that number is much worse than 90%.